Hello friends, here we are again with our next step in the tapestry process. Here we are going to weave up on either side of our central contrast section. So I've gone ahead a little bit to show you what that will look like when you're done on one side, and then I'll demo it on the other side. So you can see I have my color D as the central shape, and then I've brought up my color B, which for me was this cream, to fill in on the side here. And one of the interesting things that you'll notice when you do this is that there's a slit between these two sections. And that happens anytime you have two colors that you're weaving vertically next to each other. Now that didn't happen down here because we were alternating rows, so that interlocked all of the rows. This isn't a problem or a flaw, it's the nature of the beast with all tapestries. And you'll have the option, I'll show how you can sew that closed if you want, but if it's, especially for something that's decorative like this, they're often just left open. When you continue on with the rows up above, it'll seal that back up in the way that it's sealed up down here. Okay, so I want to have 2 arms lengths of my color B, and we're really just continuing on what we've been doing so far, but you do want to take care as you set up your first row that you are starting either over or under accurately. So you can see that this row ends with an over on that last warp thread. So I'm going to start this one with an under. And at this point, hopefully you're feeling a fair amount of confidence about plain weaving a solid block like this. I do want to point out a couple of things that can happen. Ideally, you want your line, the transition between your two shapes, to be even and straight, and also to not show a gap. And what happens when the reason that you would get a gap is just like it can be an issue when you are weaving across the full width of the tapestry. You can end up pulling in your edges by having too strong a tension. So I'm going to show you what that would look like. So if I go like this, you can see how that's starting to open this up, and I don't want that to happen. So you do need to mind your tension even on these narrow sections. Okay, so it took me about 50 rows to get up to the top here. It's probably going to should take the same because you want it to be consistent on both sides. So I'll do a few more rows here. And I'm not really using the shedding device at this point. I can, but with such a narrow width to weave through, it's pretty easy to just use my needle to do that. And tapping down with my beater to maintain the same density. And you can also see I'm not really bubbling officially, but I am leaving this little arc there so that tension stays consistent. In the same way that moisture is this kind of like really essential but easy to ignore aspect of working with clay, tension is the same thing with textiles, with tapestry weaving. It's something that you don't really think about as an ingredient, but your management of it is essential to the success of your piece. Okay, so you're going to continue on with that up this side until you reach the top. And you do want to make sure, so like if I'm looking at the top of my weaving right now, I can see that this black ends with an over and this white ends with an over. So I'm going to need to do one more row. I think I'm going to do it with the white to make sure that all the way across I still have over, under, over, under, over, under. And I'll revisit that when we set up our next section. All right, go forth and weave.